The domain name industry globally is worth millions of dollars, and it has since evolved as a major industry. But here's the big question: how can Nigeria become a major player in this growing industry? Today on the show, I chat with an industry expert who shares her thoughts on how to grow the industry locally while empowering more Nigerians online. We have a lot lined up for you. But first, some tech news and updates. This is Tech Trends, and I'm Chukwemeka Agbata.
Technology is rooted in the past. It dominates the present and tends into the future. It is a real historical movement, one of the great movements which shape and represent their epoch. It's been 3 months since schools closed in March due to the coronavirus pandemic. But just like several other students forced to stay at home, 15-year-old Abida Alabi finds other ways to keep herself busy and stay ahead of her class. Abida, an SS2 student of Jakonde Estate Comprehensive Senior College, Abeson Ipaja, with some of her schoolmates, have developed an electronic trash bot. Using easily accessible materials, they creatively make one as part of their efforts to make an impact on their immediate surroundings.
We realize this is a school environment. Looking around, you will see different dirt materials. Why not create something that when they see, they'll be attracted to go to? Because, like most people, when they see new things, they want to do it. So we decided to create something that it will be attractive. Most people, they see a dustbin there, like that mindset of just going there and dropping it is stressful to them. But when they know the thing will just open, then they throw it in, then they'll be excited to use it, which is why we decided to create it.
The e-trash bot is a device that aids the proper disposal of refuse, reducing the cost and frequency of waste collection.
There are a lot of challenges actually, because for example now, when we wanted to make the lift something that was going to lift it up, what we wanted to think of originally was not working. We used different ideas. We used the cover of a mineral cover, a bottled water cover, but we realized a lot of things were actually missing. Because when we want to make the trash bots, the original dustbin, the cover, it's too heavy for the lift to bring it off. So we decided to get something lighter, like waste from a printer's workshop. So we used the waste since it was lighter. Then we cut it into the preferred shape that we wanted. Then we put the sticker all over it. Then we realized it was going to work. Then for the lift, the rope that was supposed to lift it up, not just any rope can lift it up. We tried using thread, we tried using different things, but then we realized why not use something that's thin and at the same time strong. So we decided to get the twine from shoemakers to lift it up. So that worked too. So it's not just about using foreign materials actually. We also brought up different, like I told you, the cover was waste from a printer's workshop. Then the twine was from a shoemaker. Then we used the stick suite to hold it under it. Then most things are just from our environment, not things that we have to stress ourselves to buy.
Abida's learning is not restricted to what's obtainable within the four walls of her school, as she engages in trainings that help broaden her knowledge.
We also hold online meetings, so we're also taught how to make websites. We've also been holding meetings on different trainings on programming. I've also been able to conquer the graphics design aspects.
Yeah.
Apart from creating the e-trash bots to aid the disposal of refuse and also change the mindset of people in our community, Abida and her team have also developed a smart walker for the visually impaired and a maternal care website.
The smart walker is a walking stick which aids blind people in their walking, because looking around today, we also notice when you see a blind person, you must see a little kid, and those kids are supposed to be in school. So we decided to just create something that would enable the people to be independent on their own. It comes with a light that will enable other people around the blind person know that someone is coming, and also the buzzer that will alert the person of the obstacle in front. We are working on the maternal care web app. It's a website which enables pregnant women and expecting mothers to have access to certified and quality hospitals and medical health care. Then on the app, we also have the postpartum services because some people, even after safe delivery, their children still die or they themselves die. So the postpartum service will enable us keeping track with the pregnant woman within 0 to 6 weeks after the childbirth to ensure that the mother and the baby are both safe. So on the website, we are collaborating with World Health Organization and the NCDC because we also have the COVID-19 updates too on it.
Abida, who would love to become a computer programmer, a writer and a motivational speaker in future, intends to pass whatever knowledge she acquires this period to her peers once schools resume. An Egyptian engineer has designed a remote control robot that can take PCR swabs from patients, restricting interaction and limiting exposure amid the coronavirus outbreak. Specializing in mechatronics, Mahmoud El-Khami designed his robot in an effort to help medical staff during the pandemic.
First of all, this is a multitasked robot made for the coronavirus pandemic. It has several tasks, one of which is measuring or detecting those that are suspected to have coronavirus in public places, such as in malls, banks, or at airports. It is able to perform facial recognition of any person and measure their temperature. If the person is discovered to have a fever, then an alarm is set off.
After more than a month's work, his current prototype is able to measure temperatures, take PCR mouth swabs, recognize faces that aren't covered in masks, and advise people on proper health care. While his second prototype proved successful, El-Khami says a third version currently under works will be able to take no swabs, as well as more accurately mirror a doctor's hand movement.
Apart from that, of course, the robot is able to take the PCR swab instead of a doctor. For now, it can take it from the mouth, from the right side. In version 3, the later version, that is, using the master-slave technique, where the doctor will be able to move the robot's hand remotely.
El-Khami hopes that hospitals and clinics can make use of his invention, limiting interaction in what are usually dangerously condensed spaces. Apart from its use in hospitals, El-Khami's robot can also be used in malls, banks and airports to screen passers-by's temperature and advise those not wearing masks. As face coverings become the norm amid the coronavirus pandemic, Japanese startup Donut Robotics has developed an internet-connected smart mask that can transmit messages and translate from Japanese into 8 other languages. The white plastic C masks fits over standard face masks and connects via Bluetooth to a smartphone and tablet application that can transcribe speech into text messages, make calls, or amplify the mask wearer's voice.
It's hard to hear what customers at the cash register of supermarkets and convenience stores are saying because there are partitions to prevent droplets. By wearing this mask, it can improve these communications by transcribing the conversations on smartphones or delivering the sound of the voices.
Donut Robotics engineers came up with the idea for the mask as they searched for a product to help the company survive the pandemic. When the coronavirus struck, it had just secured a contract to supply robot guides and translators to Tokyo's Haneda Airport, a product that faces an uncertain future after the collapse of air travel. Donut Robotics' first 5,000 C masks will be shipped to buyers in Japan starting in September, with Ono looking to sell in China, the United States and Europe too. There has been strong interest, he said.
We worked hard for years to develop a robot, and we have used that technology to create a product that responds to how the coronavirus has reshaped society.
Donut Robotics is aiming at a mass market that did not exist until a few months ago. One aim, he said, is to generate revenue from subscriber services offered via an app that users will download. Donut Robotics built a prototype connected mask within a month by adapting translation software developed for its robot and a mask design that one of the company's engineers created 4 years ago for a student project to interpret speech by mapping face muscles. Owner raised $260,000 for development by selling Donut Robotics shares through Japanese crowdfunding site Fundino. Tech tips for students taking online classes from home during the coronavirus pandemic. With most schools and colleges closed due to the coronavirus outbreak, there has been a shift from classroom teaching to online teaching. Remote learning is still new for many parents and students, but to make it a little bit easier, here are some tips for parents to help their kids succeed in their online classes. Familiarize yourself with the technology. Before you use the virtual classroom software tool, familiarize yourself with the basics of the technology. Try to log into the software early and get yourself comfortable with the features. Understanding of computers. Online learning requires a good laptop with a webcam and keyboard. Make sure your machine is up to date with an antivirus installed and remove any programs you don't use or run a disk cleanup. Find out your connection speed. You need to figure out how fast your internet is currently, and you can simply type internet speed test into a search engine or try speed test site. If your speed is much lower than what you're paying for, you may want to contact your internet service provider. Keep yourself muted when you're not talking. If you're attending a live lecture with other students, ensure to mute yourself when you're not talking. That way you don't interrupt your classmates with unwanted background information. Most video conferencing apps have a small icon that shows you when your microphone is muted. Unmute the microphone when you want to join the discussion. Be careful of web camera. Pay close attention to your laptop's webcam if you're attending a lecture. Use a web camera only if you need to. Otherwise, unplug or cover up your camera. This could help prevent webcam spying.
Coming up on the show is my chat with Francisca Iluezuma, product manager Upperlink, who believes that the domain name industry has a lot of potentials, and that is because the moment anyone thinks of putting a product or service online, the next likely step would be to secure a domain name. This and more coming up right after the break. Stay with us.
The world has become a global village fueled by the internet and technology. Nigeria is one country with a lot of potential, attracting major international tech companies and other organizations. However, there is the need to ensure that .ng domain name is adopted as the primary URL for every organization that wants to do business in Nigeria. Using .ng domain names prevents cyber squatting, local targeting, and grows the country's ICT industry and boosts the national pride. Experts in the DNS industry believe that the more Nigerians adopt .ng, the better for the economy in general. Francisca Iluezuma, product manager Upperlink, joins us to discuss ways to get more Nigerians on the internet.
When we talk about the DNS, we're talking about the domain name system. And of course, when you talk about the domain name, you cannot talk about it without the IP addresses. So the IP addresses are what are formed they are large numbers that are translated into alphabets to form a particular name which you desire so that the internet can communicate with the server and you'll be able to get the information, or it's going to bring out the information needed. So for example, we have channelstv.com, that is a domain name. Obviously, when you type in channelstv.com, that is what you know. But there are some processes that goes behind, which is a particular number, some numbers that are so large that you cannot even remember. So it translates that channelstv.com into those numbers, and it interacts with the internet to bring out the information that you need. So for us to be able to remember the address we want to give to people, they narrowed it down for us to have alphabetical names, whichever word you want to have, which is known as the domain name, so that people can remember. So take, for instance, I want to own a website and I need to sell on my website. I cannot give you numbers. You can't remember those numbers. So I must have to think of a particular name for my website. Then I give that out to you. You type it into the browser, you translate it into the IP address, communicates with the internet and the server. Then you'll be able to have all the information I have about my website to you. That's what it simply means.
Looking at DNS globally, how has Nigeria fared?
I would say we are struggling. We have not gotten there yet. We are really very struggling. So I would like to start with the adoption of the Cctld. Let's start from there. Now, if you look at South Africa, I'm narrowing down to Africa right now, they have over 1 million domain names accepted. Looking at Nigeria, what is our population? Over 120 million, and we don't have up to 1 million domain names. I think we are still in thousands, like 100,000 in the whole of Nigeria. So you can see the wide gap. I'm just talking about Africa. So if I now leave Africa and enter Europe, what do you expect? We have the .eu, we have the .uk, we have all those extensions that the indigenes have adopted, and they are using it daily, and they've really adopted it. So coming down to Nigeria, we are not doing so well. So I think we should be able to start with our own brand, which is the .ng. Let's embrace it, start there, and see how we are going to do with the adoption of the domain name system in Nigeria.
How important is the DNS industry to the growth of the technology ecosystem?
You know, there's nothing you can do in tech without the DNS. Like I said, it's the IP addresses that transform into all these domain names or the addresses that we have today. So you cannot come up with a tech without having a domain name or without passing through an IP process. It's not possible. So if you look at today, the way our economy is growing. We all have our mobile apps on our phones. We all have, what's this called, your internet banking. It's very easy, and that's technology in Nigeria. You can't compare what we have today with what we used to have those days. So we are adopting it, and we are trying, and we are improving daily. So the DNS is a major factor for all these technologies to be adopted in Nigeria.
Looking at local content and the DNS industry, how do you think both work hand in hand?
When we talk about the local content, these are our own brands in Nigeria. So before we'll be able to promote our brands, we have to adopt this DNS. Look at, we talked about the global world earlier. You can see the way we heard about them. They didn't have to come to Nigeria to tell us what they do. We found them through the internet. So we have to sell ourselves through the internet. We have to be there for people to find us, for people to know what we do in Nigeria. So if I want to read something about Nigeria these days, all I have to do is just log on to a particular website. It brings out everything I have to know about our particular brand in Nigeria. So I think we are trying in that aspect right now, bringing our local content into the DNS industry. Also, I will have to touch the part of the hosting business in Nigeria. You can see that Nigeria now has their own hosting facility. Now you can host your content here in Nigeria as well. You don't have to travel all the way to UK, US France, anywhere to host your content. This is our own indigenous hosting platform, which is open for every one of us here in Nigeria to be able to host our website. So we are also trying to embrace the hosting service in Nigeria so that every human that is interested in hosting their service will be able to use the local hosting we have here in Nigeria. And it is not different from what we have abroad. So local content and DNS work together as well. So without the DNS, I don't think the global world would hear what we do or would know about what we do.
So in terms of strengthening local content and the DNS industry, what role do you expect government to play?
I think I would expect the government to help with hosting locally, make it more affordable for people to access, because the major complaint is that hosting is very expensive, especially when you're hosting in Nigeria. Hosting locally is expensive, it's not affordable. So I think if they can come in that aspect, it will be a welcome address or a welcome opportunity for us that are in the DNS industry. Also, we need the government to, if they can encourage those that are already in the business, if there's a way they could help them to grow the business. The economy, the standard of living in Nigeria is expensive these days. It's not easy. So we talk about, we don't have power supply, which is the major factor for hosting locally. If there is a way government would help in that aspect. I don't know how they could do it. They should just sit and work around it so that these things will be easier for those in the DNS industry to be able to access. It's going to help us because once we start hosting locally, we are promoting the country.
Tell us a bit about what you're doing to strengthen local content and the DNS industry today.
In my company, what we do basically is encourage people to embrace the .ng brands. We go to schools. We go to all these SME programs. When you're registering your domain, your business name, we advise you choose your domain name alongside with it so you don't lose that name that you want. So we promote that a lot. Anytime we have to visit SMEs or attend programs that has to do with startups, we encourage them to do that. Talking about students, we are opening their eyes to it. Because as a student, you don't know what you're going to face once you leave school. But we have started training students on the DNS industry, how it works.
Finally, as a woman in the DNS industry, what do you think we can do to encourage more women to follow your steps?
There are various organizations that women can find themselves, can join for this kind of business. We have like the Women in Tech. We have a lot of women there that are into the domain industry. So for us to get a lot of women in this, we need to do more of awareness and show them what women can do in this industry. So oftentimes we see when men go out to talk, discuss about the tech issues, related issues. No, let women start doing the talking. I think that will encourage more women to start thinking, going into that line. So I think for me, I have decided to always be out there for people to see me and see what I can do so that if there is a woman out there that is aspiring to speak up in tech industry and doesn't know how to start, I want to encourage them to be able to stand up and speak up.
Francisca, it's been amazing chatting with you today, and thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you very much, CFA.
As you have heard from Francisca, the growth of the domain name industry will help in deepening local content, which is important for Nigeria to also become relevant in the world of technology. That's our show for today. Please follow us on social media, and don't forget, you can watch this and previous editions of the show on the channel's TV YouTube account or via cfablog.ng. For Tech Trends, I'm Chukwuemeka Agbata.